1,435,876, while we have recorded 167,369 deaths across the globe. Recoveries at the moment are 639,239 at the moment. In Africa, confirmed cases are 22,579, deaths are 1,128, and 5,672 people have recovered from the COVID-19. In Nigeria, confirmed cases remain 627, with 21 deaths and 170 recoveries. Now to our current developing stories. The U.S. has continued to intensify debates over when to lift restrictions to control the coronavirus outbreak, with protesters describing mandatory lockdowns as tyranny, and New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo and other officials urging caution until more testing becomes available. Stay-at-home measures, which experts say are essential to slow the spread of the virus, have grounded the economy to a virtual standstill and forced more than 22 million people to apply for unemployment benefits in the past month. In Pennsylvania, where Democratic Governor Tom Wolf has promised to veto a Republican-backed bill that will force him to reopen some businesses, a few hundred protesters, most of them in cars, held a demonstration in the capital, Harrisburg. Many of the protesters expressed cynicism toward health experts and skepticism about the actual scale of the pandemic in the country, accusing officials of overreacting and taking actions that had caused more harm than the virus itself. All the projections were wrong, but we're still telling people to stay home and businesses to close. This is not quarantine, this is tyranny, said Mark Cooper, a 61-year-old retired truck driver. Republican lawmakers in several states have also backed the protesters, some of whom have failed to wear face masks and practice the social distancing that health officials say are key to getting the virus under control. President Donald Trump, a Republican seeking re-election in November, has said state governors should have the final say, but has favored an early end to the lockdowns, and many protesters in the past week have sported pro-Trump signs and campaign gear. Still in the U.S. oil industry, crude futures plunged more than 85% today to the lowest price on record as storage space for U.S. crude was filing up, discouraging buyers, even as weak economic data from Germany and Japan cast doubt on when fuel consumption will recover. Physical demand for crude has dried up, creating a global supply glut as billions of people stay home to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. The May U.S. WTI contract fell $15.91, or 87.1% to $2.36 a barrel at 1:25 p.m. today, after touching an all-time low of $2.26. Brent LCOCI was down $1.76, or 6.3% to $26.32 a barrel. The June WTI contract CLC2 is trading more actively at a much higher level of $22.25 a barrel. The spread between May and June was more than $19, the widest in history for the two nearest monthly contracts. Investors bailed out of the May contract ahead of expiry later today because of lack of the demand for the actual oil. When a futures contract expires, traders must decide whether to take delivery of the oil or roll their positions into another futures contract for a later month. Usually this process is relatively uncomplicated, but this time there are very few counterparties that will buy from investors and take delivery of the oil. Storage is filling quickly at Cushing in Oklahoma, which is where the crude is delivered. U.S. crude stockpiles at Cushing rose 9% in the week to April 17th, totaling around 61 million barrels, market analysts said, citing today's report from Gainscape. The storage is too full for speculators to buy this contract, and the refiners are running at low levels because we haven't lifted stay-at-home orders in most states, said Phil Flynn, an analyst at Price Futures Group in Chicago. There's not a lot of hope that things are going to change in 24 hours. Many investors have been misled by what appeared to be a very low price and did not consider the monthly expiry of futures contracts. Commerzbank analyst Carsten Frisch said, prices have been pressured for weeks with the coronavirus outbreak hammering demand, while Saudi Arabia and Russia fought a price war and pumped more. The two sides agreed more than a week ago to cut supply by 9.7 million barrels per day, but that will not quickly reduce the global glut. Brent oil prices have collapsed around 60% since the start of the year, while U.S. crude futures have fallen around 95% to levels well below break-even cost necessary for many shale drillers. This has led to drilling halts and drastic spending cuts. Now to the UK. Britain's biggest listed companies have urged to hold virtual annual general meetings after 2/3 of the firms to announce meetings so far opted to hold them behind closed doors because of COVID-19. In a letter to the boards of the FTSE 100 companies, campaign group Share Action said it was concerned the move will deny shareholders a chance to directly question management on issues from strategy to pay. The COVID-19 crisis has seen the value of pension assets and shareholding fall sharply in the UK. Management teams are making vitally important decisions that will affect the long-term success of companies as well as the lives of their workers and customers. Of the 22 companies to announce the changes to their AGM so far, 15 said they now plan to hold them behind closed doors, among them Barclays, currently the subject of an activist campaign. The rest have chosen to hold a hybrid AGM with an element of virtual participation or follow up their closed-door AGM with an additional online question and answer session. Share Action, though, said it wanted all the companies to hold a virtual AGM in 2020 that would let investors question boards in real time and for voting to be replicated online. Shareholders will want to question directors about the impact of coronavirus and its implications on the company, liquidity and solvency, and will want reassurance about this and the ongoing business model, said Clive Wright, director of Share Society. Now to China. One of the world's largest economies has approached a number of countries to discuss the possibility of easing border controls to allow some businesses travel to resume, part of broader efforts to restart economic activity stalled by the coronavirus pandemic. With China signaling initial success in containing its domestic contagion, its officials have in recent weeks proposed efforts to facilitate essential travel with foreign counterparts from more than a dozen countries across the Asia-Pacific. Chinese officials have raised the idea in formal and formal settings with counterparts from Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia, among other governments, the diplomats said. South Korea and Singapore have formally agreed to discuss ways to facilitate essential travel with China, according to government statements. Beijing has also reached out to some European countries about allowing some travel necessary for sustaining supply chains, some diplomats said. The identity of those countries couldn't be confirmed at the moment. China's travel curbs are among the strictest worldwide imposed to halt the resurgence of the coronavirus into the country where the pandemic first erupted. Since last March, China has suspended entry for nearly all foreigners and limited international air routes to weekly flights, week after Beijing urged other countries not to restrict travel to and from China, saying such curbs go against World Health Organization guidance. The proposal to ease some of these controls comes as China steps up effort to restore economic activity and repair global supply chains that have been hobbled by mass quarantines and border closures. Last week, Friday, China said its economy shrank 6.8% in the first 3 months of this year from a year earlier, the first contraction since Beijing began reporting quarterly gross domestic product figures in 1992. Now to the International Monetary Fund. The IMF may need to step outside its comfort zone and consider exceptional measures to help countries deal with the coronavirus pandemic and mitigate its economic impact. Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said today. Georgieva, in a blog published on the International Monetary Fund's website, said the fund has already taken extraordinary steps to free up resources, especially for emerging markets and developing economies that have seen an outflow of $100 billion in recent months, the highest on record. But more resources might be needed if market pressures continue to mount, and lending, even on easy terms, was not always the best solution, given already high debt burdens faced by many countries, she said. The IMF, like our member countries, may need to venture even further outside our comfort zone to consider whether exceptional measures might be needed in this exceptional crisis. Suggesting solutions could include increased collaboration with other international institutions and the private sector. Mrs. Georgieva gave more details, but her remarks comes after a joint IMF World Bank paper published last week Friday, which said a broader group of countries beyond the 77 poorest countries that have already been promised a suspension in debt payments on official bilateral loans may need debt relief. Georgieva also revived her call for a possible allocation of special drawing rights, its currency, a step that has been opposed by the United States. An SDR allocation is akin to a central bank printing new money. The IMF last forecast the global economy would contract by 3% in 2020 due to the pandemic, marking the steepest downturn since the Great Depression of the 1930s. In our quote, "We stand ready to deploy our full lending capacity to mobilize all layers of the global financial safety net, including whether the use of SDRs could be more helpful," Georgieva wrote in her blog. U.S. Treasury Secretary Mr. Steven Mnuchin last week rejected an SDR allocation, arguing that 70% of the funds created through an SDR allocation will go to G20 countries, most of whom did not need it, while only 3% will go to low-income countries. For the World Health Organization, top officials said today that partisan politics and lack of global solidarity are helping to fuel the coronavirus pandemic. The Director General of the WHO, Mr. Adhanom Ghebreyesus, urged countries to work together as COVID-19 continues to spread throughout the world. The cracks between people and the cracks between parties is fueling it. Dr. Ghebreyesus said, "Don't use this virus as an opportunity to fight against each other or score political points. It's dangerous. It's like playing with fire." Without global solidarity, the worst of the pandemic is still ahead of us, he said in Geneva. The Ethiopian microbiologist previously said he has received death threats and racial insults. "The virus is dangerous. It exploits cracks between us," he continued in his remarks. He emphasized the need for global solidarity that is cemented on genuine national unity, which without this being achieved can create more issues at the global health systems. The virus, which emerged in Wuhan, China over 3 months ago, has infected more than 2.4 million people worldwide and killed at least 165,000 as of today, according to data from Johns Hopkins University. However, infectious disease experts say the number of those who have had the virus is likely much higher as people go undetected and countries struggle with testing. Tedros' comments came 6 days after President Donald Trump announced that the U.S. will suspend funding to the WHO while it reviews the agency's response to COVID-19 pandemic. President Trump criticized the international agency's response to the outbreak, saying one of the most dangerous and costly decisions for the WHO was its disastrous decision to oppose travel restrictions. The WHO said it will turn to other countries to help fill in the gaps in terms of financing and focusing on tackling the COVID-19. There are regrets for Trump's decision, but the U.S. agency's funding runs in 2 years budget cycles for the 2018 and 2019 funding cycle. Currently, the U.S. paid a $237 million required assessment, as well as additional $656 million in voluntary contribution, averaging $446 million a year and representing about 14.67% of its total budget, according to spokesman Tariq Jesarev. And that will be all for our lockdown phase 2, day 7 coverage of the Chronomics Discourse. You can visit our website www.proshareng.com to get more updates from our news stories and videos. ProShare, Nigeria's leading information hub, has packaged for you a platform that gives you credible and reliable market data and analysis on the impact of COVID-19 on the global and Nigerian economy. Log on to proshareng.com/COVID-19 to get all the updates you need. You can also follow our social media platforms showing on the screen for further updates on our market reports. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching, have a nice day, and stay safe.